Hello everyone, my name is Chase and I am a mentalist magician. Everything that I do is 100% fake. But what if it wasn't? And where did magic originally come from? Well, in this series I am travelling across the UK with help from some of my friends.
It was the work of the devil. He was charged with an actual crime.
I felt like really slowly, like a hand come around my neck and a hand come around my face. And the next thing I know, I'm being like dragged by my face.
And hopefully we can answer the question, is magic real? Hello everyone and welcome to an episode of Is Magic Real? Today I'm joined by a very special guest. Not only is he probably the most creative person I know in magic, not only is he the person who inspires me on a day-to-day basis, but he's also a very, very good-looking chap. Let's put it that way.
Don't know about that. I don't know about any of that actually, but that's very nice of you. Thank you.
You're welcome. It is the one and only mainstream Mike, obviously.
Yeah, with the hat on especially. Yeah.
No, it is Kevin Boo. Hello, Kevin. How you doing?
Hello, I'm good. Thank you. Thank you so much. That was a wonderful intro. Thank you. I'll pay you later. That was too much. Thank you.
I wrote out and I forgot what it was, so I just added the good-looking thing. It's not true.
Cuts me right to my core. That's what he does. He builds you up and then he knocks you down.
That's what magic is, right?
Exactly. It's good to be here. I feel like this has been a long time coming. It's very good to be on the channel. I watch all your videos likewise. So yeah, I'm intrigued to the answer to your question. It's a big question.
It is. It's a huge question, and I feel like I'm surprised no one's asked it before. I'm surprised no one's gone down this rabbit hole before. And so yeah, it's just something that's really interesting to me. I call it limbo because everything that I do is 100% fake.
Yes, yeah.
Like you, I've never had any magical experiences. But then my family, on the other hand, have had supernatural experiences. My grandmother could literally, bit of branding for you.
Excellent. I don't even have any with me.
There you go. She you'd hold up a playing card and she'd know where it was, and it wouldn't be any sleight of hand or any. It genuinely was like that. And she used to tell you things that it would come true later down the line, and it'd just be really weird. And my mum's the same. It skips a generation. My mum.
That's legitimate. Wow.
100%.
Now that is weird, isn't it?
Yeah, and she used to come out with so many weird things like, "Oh, don't go out to this place tonight," and then like there'd be a stabbing in that area that night.
Oh,
it's really like it'd be really weird things like that. And so I like to call it limbo. I like to call it limbo.
Yeah, I've had supernatural experiences, but I'm a magician, right? And I call myself somewhat of a skeptic. And I've always sort of thought, okay, I might not know the logical solution to this weird thing that's happened. And there's, been weird things in my family that they've told me about, and they've sort of come to me for like an explanation because I'm someone who, is interested in this sort of stuff. And I've always thought there is an explanation. There must be an explanation other than supernatural. It can't be supernatural. That's why I always think, I'm just being like cold and logical. Even stuff that's happened directly to me, which I'll probably get into if you want to know what that is. I've always thought it's weird, it's spooky, but there must be something, whether it's our brain, maybe our brain is unreliable. We like to think of it as this sort of perfect computer that analyzes the whole world and we understand it perfectly. But how do we know that? How do we know that your red is my red? Our brain is taking all this in and maybe it's adapting it in its own way. I mean, we dream. For goodness sake, when we sleep, we're coming up with crazy things that could never happen. So who's to say that that sort of thing can't happen when we're awake? I think there's a lot that we don't know there. So in terms of like the supernatural, that's my take on it. But again, who knows? Like it's one of those things that we might discover something tomorrow science-wise that just explains a lot of stuff that we don't already know.
Exactly. And it's a really good way of starting this off, really, and talking about it, because you'll see in other episodes of this, it's, people are talking about their experiences, and then I'll find myself explaining how it could happen, like theoretically.
Yeah.
And
Well, I do very much the same thing when family members come to me or friends or whoever. Oh, this weird thing happened. I'm always going, well, it could be this, it could be that. There's a lot of explanations. I try and sort of debunk it, not to ruin it at all, because the event, even if it didn't happen, even if it happened in their head, it doesn't mean that it's not valid. Your experience in your head is just as valid as any sort of reality. So I always try and sort of break it down as logically as possible. But give me an example of your sort of supernatural. I'm so intrigued by this, knowing what the playing card is. I want to know more about that.
It's a shame because she died when I was quite young, so all I hear is stories from people, and the best thing is, the classic witches with things like missing fingers and things like that. She was missing a finger. She cut it off. She worked at a sweet shop. Like, even down to that, like, she was missing a finger, kind of thing. It was crazy. And then my mum's had loads of supernatural experiences. She it's a shame she never wanted to go on camera. I'd love to come on camera and talk to her, and we've had loads of conversations about it. But she's I don't want to be in the spotlight. She doesn't really like talking about it. So yeah, she was. There's a story, and I think I've said it in an episode before, but it doesn't matter. It's so she was at my uncle's house, and she saw a man just walk through, nothing of it, and then a couple of days later, she was going through pictures and things like that, and turns out that it was my uncle's great uncle or something like that. Spitting image, same clothes. She's never seen this photo in her life.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's weird.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
That's weird.
Unexplainable as well, because I'm just
I
love
things like that. I just love things like that, because how can that happen? I mean, that is like perfect setup for a ghost story. That's so impossible. I mean, my mum, if we're talking about our mothers, had a weird experience. So she was a nurse, and there was this ward in the hospital she worked at that was like famous among the doctors and nurses for being like haunted. And I think my mum was always a bit like, whatever. But then one time she went to sort of the bed at the end of this corridor, and there was a old man sat on the bed looking out of the window, back turned, looking out of the window. And she just thought nothing of it, patience, whatever. But it was at the end of the corridor. There's no way out other than coming down the corridor. So she goes about her business, whatever. And she asks about the patient in the room at the end. And you can see where this is going. There was no patient in the room at the end. No one was meant to be in that room. And when she went back, no one was in that room. So it's like, where that guy, he couldn't have jumped out the window. Where did he go? Like, it's impossible. And she swears there was a person sitting on that bed. So again, I come back to my point from before. My logical explanation is you're working a night shift, you're very tired, drowsy, whatever, even if you're working, your mind plays tricks on you, especially at night. Could be something to do with a light or a shadow that your brain interprets as an actual person, whatever it is. There must be something, because a man can't just disappear into thin air. There must be an explanation. That's what I always think about. And talking to people,
annoying, right? It's annoying
into thin air. Well, yeah.
It's when you've got one of these brains, because you want to believe, or I want to believe.
I would love to believe.
I would love to. This is a thing.
Yeah.
But
that's the thing.
tired.
I so want it to be true, because that would be so much better, right? I want magic to be real, because it would be what a wonderful thing. I was at school. I was about 12 years old. I was in a classroom. Last lesson on a Friday. I still remember it was last lesson on a Friday. It was English. I just remember these things. This sticks with me so much. And I look out of the window down onto this sort of, not like playground, but like courtyard. And there's this like war memorial at the school I was at, because some people who went to the school died in the war, whatever. So there's this memorial, and it's around November time. So there's poppies, there's wreaths on this memorial. And there's a man in a suit, and I can picture him in a suit, a sort of a pinstripe suit. And he's just looking down at the poppies. And I think, okay, whatever. And it's this amount of time. I'm looking at him out the window. I look back up at the teacher. I look back down, and he's gone. It's seconds apart, and this man has And I stand up in the classroom and look out the window, and I'm looking like this, and people are like, "What's wrong? Are you okay?" And I couldn't say what had just happened, because people would be like, "You're seeing things. You're mad, right? That can't happen." And to this day, I don't know. Probably just saw something, right? My brain probably just came up with it, but that made me question it really, really deeply, because that's not possible, you know. And all my
you
sort of
started out
logic.
in magic, eh? That's how.
Well, that would be a brilliant
I
story.
want to know how he did it.
Yeah, no, but I mean, it was just like, yeah, it was a magic trick, right in front of my eyes. That was magic, as close to real magic as I've ever experienced. You know, explain that. I don't know how else you can explain it other than your brain playing tricks.
Yeah, but there's so many I mean, again, you'll see in other episodes, I've spoken to people, and I literally just explained to them how it could be possible. And there's a certain episode that I'm thinking of. I was talking to one of my friends in a coffee shop about it, and we filmed the whole episode, and it was just, I had to bite my tongue halfway through the chat, because I like, she was real getting into it, and I was just, but, and I was like, I need to just let you vent out. It's the first time she's ever speaking about it, and I need to let you do you and believe, because it's me cutting it down. But at the end of the series, something might happen that makes me go, it's real.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to seeing sort of the conclusion to this. There's almost so much to the question, and I can see why you're doing a whole video series on it rather than just one video, because there is so much to this question. There's almost like, you need to define magic, and then you need to define real as well, because real varies from person to person. Like I was saying, is something in your head real, or does it need to be
different as well for different countries as well? Because people believe certain things, like ghosts in Italy and Spain and things are so more prominent, and people believe it so much more. And religion is a huge factor in it. And that's what I found in my searches. Religion's a huge factor in it. And I'm not particularly religious in any way, shape, or form. Like, I think it's very similar towards magic and things. It's all stories that gets built up, I think, in certain ways. And religion plays a big part in other countries as well. More countries more religious, and I find that more religious countries, no matter what religion they believe in, they kind of believe in magic in a different way. I'm talking to a lot of other people from other countries and trying to get their way of things. And if a series 2 comes out, I'll pop over to another country.
Get the promo in early. Yeah, no, it's so interesting. But yeah, magic and religion are so intertwined. You go back to the early roots of magic as a performance art, which is something that we're interested in. Then throughout its era, it's been associated with religion. There were magicians, and I can't remember his name. Maybe you can. Magic historians in the comments, feel free to say.
You think people are going to comment on this video? Okay.
People definitely should comment on this video and like and subscribe to Chasing the Illusion. But there was this guy who took water, put it in his mouth, swirled it around, and spat out red wine, right? And people were going to kill him. It was the work of the devil. He was charged with an actual crime at the time, which was devil dealing. That was the charge, and he was going to be killed. And he had to explain how it was done in order to survive. And it was, a simple trick of lining your mouth with some sort of berry that turns the water red. But, that is like, it's sort of proof that magic and religion are so closely tied, and people are very touchy over when magic sort of crosses that line and gets into quite dangerous territory of stepping on the toes of religion, which at the time, again, was sort of, and still is, a very bad thing to do. You sort of need to keep them apart, but you can't, because the earliest magic tricks are all religious. Jesus, turned water into wine. Jesus walked on water and, fed the 5. They're all miracles.
When Dynamo walked on water, that was a big thing. Everyone.
Oh yeah, I remember the articles that came from that, and the sort of the backlash that came from that. People being very, very upset at that, because, yeah, of course, and again, I'm not religious, I'm agnostic, but to religious people, it's like that is their, if someone comes along and imitates this, it's like a a bad impression of a celebrity you really like. I know it's a terrible analogy, but it's like offensive to the thing that you hold dear. And that's a very, very sort of tricky thing. But again, we're sort of going on a little tangent
Well,
there,
no,
but I think it's important to
one of
note.
the questions. One of my questions was obviously recently you brought out a video about the history of magic,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it was absolutely hilarious. By the way, you know, if you haven't seen
Thank
it,
you.
definitely watch it. I watched it about 5 times. Like, and that's not to watch the same
Well, I
video.
watched it about 500 times when I was editing it. So.
But you know, just on repeat, I had to keep watching it, and then I found myself a couple of days later watching it again because it was hilarious. So yeah, one of my questions was: did you find anything like with how magic started, or the crux of it, and when you was doing your research for that video?
Yeah, I nearly gave up very early into it. I knew I wanted to do it, and it was on the list for a long time, but I kind of had to wait until other stuff was out of the way until I could make it, because I knew even though it's going to be a short video, a lot of editing, a lot of research, whatever, probably the most amount of work I've put into a video, and it's like 3 minutes long or something ridiculous. So I very nearly gave up at the start of that because of just the conflicting research right at the beginning. You know, the later stuff, the Victorian era, all of that, there's solid evidence of when it happened, what happened, and who it happened to. It's all of that is sorted. But the earlier you go back, as with all of history, the records are kind of conflicting each other. Originally, I was going to start with ancient Egypt. So a magician called Dedi, very famous, decapitated a goose and then an ox, put the heads back on, great trick. And you know, the Pharaoh Khufu character sort of at the time built the first pyramid. It's just a great story. Whether it happened or not, it's a great story. And again, there's so much to say that it didn't happen. And although we know that Pharaoh Khufu was real because there's statues and hieroglyphs and the pyramids are there, you know, you can see all that stuff. Actual Dedi, hardly any evidence that he existed. He's in a book and that's it. And lots of things in books aren't true. So it's like, okay, maybe he didn't exist. But then you go even further back than that, and there's this bowl that fills itself with water. And I researched and researched, can't even find a scrap of evidence of who it was that did this. But it clearly happened because the bowls you can still sort of find. And it's a method that is sort of still around in some very small ways, that adapted and changed. So it's like, you know, it's so difficult to explain because it's like there's absolutely nothing the further you go back. And possibly there were tricks before that. I can imagine, you know, cavemen, simple
making fire.
It was wizardry, all right? You can imagine them gathered around the first fire. You know, it must have been a first fire at some point, and you can imagine them gathered around, and to them that was magic. So if we go back to like the definition of magic, well, how simple do you want to go? Is fire magic, you know, to other creatures?
Yeah.
It's, you know, magic for humans is a different thing to magic for, you know, Neanderthals or simple human creatures back then, or animals. You know, they see a bolt of lightning in the sky, that is magic to them, and that's real. So, you know, I'm sort of twisting the question.
Kind of thing. You know, they can't. They just see lightning in the sky, and we're like, no, it's whatever the science is behind it.
Yeah, static electricity or whatever. Yeah.
So yeah, that was one of my questions for you. Was did you find anything on how magic was created? So that's kind of answered one of.
Yeah, I almost want to say, and it was something that I pondered in the research, but it didn't fit the vibe of the video because it's a bit philosophical and the video is more sort of comedic, that magic kind of wasn't created. Like you're saying, when was magic created? I almost think it wasn't created. I think it's always been there. I think it's sort of an emotion or a feeling that humans have craved for a very long time. The reason it's around, the reason magic as an art form is around, is because I think people like the unknown. All right, let's say in 1,000 years, science has discovered everything there is to know. We know when the universe was created, if it was created. We know how old it is, if it has an age. We know all of those things. Science has explained everything. Magic will be more important then than ever.
Yeah, and also when we figure out all those answers, there'll be more questions that we'll want to answer further to that as well.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah, but I'm sort of thinking, you know, hypothetically, not that it will ever happen. If we know everything, magic is so important because we need to not know some stuff. we need magic to provide us with that sort of feeling of how's that happened, or what is this thing that I've seen? Because there's nothing like it, right? We all know that. Magicians all know that. There's no greater feeling than seeing something that you've no explanation for. It's wonderful.
I'll tell you what, that's a really beautiful way to put it. It's like what you've just summed up there, and I can see why it didn't make it into the video, because it's
Yeah.
But that is actually a really beautiful way to put it, and I couldn't put it better myself, really. So thank you for that.
Oh well, no, thank you. Yeah, I've always thought that, but yeah, I don't think I've ever quite worded it like that. And this is even now I'm thinking I can't. Once you've started down this line of questioning, it's just going round in my head now. I'll be thinking about this for days. Thank you.
You're welcome. So one of the other questions was, going back to what we know. Obviously, everything that we do is sleight of hand. It's fake. It's whatever you want to do. But I'm sure you've had these moments as well. I know I have daily whenever I do gigs or things like that. When you haven't done anything tricky and everything just falls into place. Think like a card at any number, and you go, think of a card, think of a number, you just go through the deck, and it is at that perfect moment. Have you ever had any of those when you haven't done anything, you've just stood back? It's not a self-working trick.
Yeah.
But you stood back and something has just worked out perfectly, and you're like, wow, okay, is that magic, or is that fate, or is it coincidence?
Yeah, I've had a few moments. One that is something that I can't explain. The other that is something that I can. I've thought of two. I was doing a gig, walking around, whatever, and this was back in the day when I used to do signed card all the time, right? I was getting cards signed, and I'd opened a fresh deck, and I went to one group, had the card signed, whatever, did the routine, moved on to the next group. So I knew there was only one card missing from the deck, and I knew it was the 4 of clubs that they'd signed, or whatever the card was. And I come to the second group, and the way that I did it back then was I got them to name a card, just to make it free rather than pick one out, just name a card. And they named the 4 of clubs, and they were across the other side of the room. And I just remembered, well, the last one was the 4 of clubs. There's no 4 of clubs in this deck. And so I just got them to go through the deck and try and find the 4 of clubs, and there wasn't one. And that was an amazing trick. Of course, I know how it works. 1 in 52 chance they could have said anything, and they happened to say the card that wasn't in the deck, and that's just like wonderful.
And the 4 of clubs as well is so rare to be named as well. If you know the psychology of naming a card, 4 of clubs is quite low down on the list.
Yeah, even getting a black card is unusual. It really is. If you get people to name a card, the amount of times it will be red, that's a trick in itself. It really, really is. And the amount of times it'll be hearts is more than diamonds. It's so predictable. It's not a 1 in 52 chance. Now, for historical accuracy, I don't know if it was exactly the 4 of clubs, but I remember it was something like that, 3 of clubs or 5 of clubs or whatever. So yeah, it was just like a weird moment. I've not had anything quite like that happen since, but I've had something happen, which was at a sort of dinner party. I was doing a trick, and the trick I won't tell you what the trick is, but it involves me counting down from 5. And there's people holding wine glasses and whatever, drinking, and I go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I snap my fingers, and a wine glass shatters on the table. No one's touched, no one's even holding it or squeezing it or whatever. It's just on the table, and for whatever reason, it just blows up. It's like a crystal wine glass. I don't know if there was a weakness in it or whatever, and it had been wanting to shatter for ages, but at that moment it gave in as I clicked my fingers. That's crazy. That's like, what? That's even more wild, because that I don't have an explanation for, really. But again, in my logical brain can sort of,
you've answered to something. But I've got 2 questions on the wine glass thing. First question is, did you have to pay for it afterwards?
No, because I didn't. It was literally, I wasn't even near it. It'd be funny if I did. That's coming off the bill, But it really just was like sitting on the table and bam.
Yeah.
Incredible.
And second question is, was it the best reaction of the night?
Oh, people were screaming, but it was almost so good that it was hard to take credit for. Yeah. Because I was doing something else, because like the trick was happening over here, bam, and then it shatters. It's like, and if people go do that again, I can't do it again. I have no idea how it happened. So
Do it again. Do it to
Yeah.
my glass.
And so I can't sort of take credit. I try to, in the moment, just sort of improvise and go, great, that happened. Now back to the trick, and sort of, but it's difficult to do that really, unless, you're sort of a very, very good performer, which at the time I don't think I quite was. So people just sort of put it down to like a weird freak event. But yeah, very strange.
Because I talk to so many other magicians, and so many people say that weird things happen like that. You haven't done absolutely anything. And I did a video on it when I did a cold reading effect. So I was, no tricks or anything, and I just came out the most randomest thing, and it worked. And I know like cold reading is that kind of thing, but you and ah, and then you go down a certain path if they react differently. But they just said yes the whole time. And it was, if I did exactly the same thing to someone else, that would not have happened.
Yeah.
It was great, and it opened so many doors for me that this one guy ended up, owning a gallery in London. And it was crazy, and I didn't know. I didn't know any. He just came to see my show, and I was doing a bit after the show, and I just spoke to him. He said, "Oh, show me something," without any cards, without anything. I was like, now you're in my wheelhouse.
Yeah, you've just got to go for it. You're in the deep end. Yeah, exactly. I love that though. It's such a challenge. But yeah, no, I guess weird things like that have happened. I do this thing quite often, and free trick for the magicians watching. This is something that's so simple. I just look at people, and I'll do it with you actually, Chase, because I don't know your birthday. But you're not a Scorpio by any chance, are you?
No, I'm not, unfortunately.
No, never mind. We'll try this next thing if I was doing a magic trick. So, right, 12 times out of 10? What am I saying? One time out of 12, that won't work. But when it does, it works.
Yeah.
It really,
you did that in one of your. You wrote that in one of your books, didn't you?
It's just
so
chance.
it's
just if you get it right, it's brilliant. I did it in a lecture as well to this like magic club, and it worked then. So good. Got it on camera, and it worked. I just looked at a guy. You're not a Scorpio. I always go for Scorpio, and he said, "Yeah."
I always go for Capricorn.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Which I am, so it would work.
There you go. You're a Capricorn.
Well, how did he do it?
No, because I go into a progressive anagram, and Capricorn's such a bad progressive anagram to put into it. So I just kind of use it as a, just keep saying it over and over again in your head, like Capricorn, Capricorn, Capricorn. And if they react, perfect. But if they don't, then move on to how a progressive anagram works. That's how I do it.
Exactly.
If they go to Capricorn, it's like, okay, perfect, trick done.
No one knows how the trick's going to end as well. I always tell that to magicians. If you get something wrong, people aren't going to forget about it, especially if you're just asking someone if they're a Scorpio. That's not a trick. You're just asking. If they say no, you go, yeah, I thought not. It doesn't matter. They don't know what you're doing.
Especially when you've got such a background like you do in magic, you always talk about doing jazz magic and things anyway. It's you're perfect for that. If something if I ever see you perform properly, I'll never know if something went wrong. And chances are I do the same thing, and it's
fingers crossed.
I go into doing one trick and it's not how it turns out, especially with mentalism. Oh,
mentalism is, go to any psychic. I've had a psychic reading one-on-one, and you come away remembering all the things they got right. Oh my God. There were things that, the psychic, for instance, knew that my mum was a nurse. I'll bring that up again because I've already said it. And it was like, wow, amazing. But for everything they're getting right, they're getting a hell of a lot wrong. They were saying things that were just wildly, she was saying, oh, your favorite food, it's you like your steak well done. It's like, I've never had steak in my life. Yeah, I don't eat steak. So, completely wrong. If they were really psychic, if we're going down that route of that sort of magic, if they were really psychic, would they be getting that stuff wrong?
That is one of my other questions for you when it comes to.
I love this topic.
It's almost as if you read my mind, Kevin.
I was picking up on that actually. Yeah.
So one of my literal questions was: do you believe in mediums? Do you believe in psychics? Do you? do you think they're just doing the next level bit of cold reading or hot reading, that they're so in tune with it that they don't even realize they're doing it, but they are doing what we do?
Yeah,
That's
I used to think that I knew the answer to this 100%. Long-term viewers of my YouTube channel might remember I did a video that got a bit of a backlash, which was debunking this psychic, right? There was a TV show called Seatbelt Psychic that was like a carpool karaoke thing, but instead of singing, it was a psychic driving and he was reading the person while they were sort of in a taxi. Kind of a cool concept, not gonna lie. I'd love to do a carpool magic. I'm copywriting that, by the way, because that's something I really want to do. But yeah, it was a good concept for a show, but I at the time thought it was just complete nonsense, right? That they've just researched these people. It's a TV show. Reality TV's, a lot of it's fake anyway. Not all of it, but a lot of it's fake. So the chances of this being fake are pretty high. They've just researched these people and this guy's saying what they know. And because everything would be a hit, right? Go and see a psychic. Like I said, a lot of things are going to miss and they're going to be wrong. On this show, it was like hit after hit after hit.
Yeah,
obviously,
they're probably just going to be cutting out the bits that didn't hit.
Well, yeah. And if I was a psychic with a TV show, I know what I'd be doing. I'd be in the cutting room going, get rid of everything I've got wrong. Because
you film for 5 hours and you only get an hour of footage, really.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's a 5-minute car journey, and it starts in the daytime and they're at nighttime at the end or whatever. It's a lot is cut out. So yeah, I used to think complete nonsense. I made that video going through how I thought everything was done and how I would do it if I was the psychic. And I wrote a book called The Honest Psychic, which is essentially a big 80-page dig at psychics.
It is a great read.
Thank you. But I explain all the tricks. I explain how I would do everything and how I do cold reading and present it as mentalism. But the same stuff could be used if you were a psychic, and you could use all the techniques in that book to do a pretty good psychic reading of someone using all the different stuff from it. So I used to be very confidently on the side of it's fake. But I don't want to say that, because I think it's a simplistic view of a very complicated art form. And I'm going to call it an art form, even though my past self would be cringing terribly at calling psychic reading an art form. But it is an art form because it's a skill, it's a dedication, it's a craft. Whether magicians like it or not, it is, and it takes a great deal of skill and guts. Any propless mentalist, try it and you'll see how difficult it is. Because yes, a lot of psychics aren't psychic. They're not really psychic. They are faking it. They are charlatans, and they're using the tricks from The Honest Psychic. Probably they've not read that book, but
yeah. When I go and talk to psychics and mediums, if I see your book in their bookshelf,
yeah. Are you subscribed to Captain Booth? You can flip the table on them, do a bit of mentalism. But some of them are. But there are charlatans in every business, right? There are charlatan plumbers who scam the elderly, and they don't know how to do plumbing, but they come in and they take the money and they wangle the tubes a bit and they go. And there are con men in every business.
For the record, I'm a charlatan. What I do is fake. I don't actually do magic.
I guess you can say every magician is a charlatan then in that instance, because we're not actually magic. But there's a sort of an unsigned agreement between magicians and audiences that what we do is fake, not actually magic. We're just going to pretend to be. And you can even say that to audiences. I've done that in the past.
Yeah. It's really why I like mentalism, because it kind of blurs the line with it. It could be believable, and what you're doing, whether you're doing cold reading or you're reading people's body language or you're influencing them, that stuff that is true, and that is all a skill base. And when I do that kind of thing, I'm honest with them. When they say, "How did you know that?" I'm just like, "Well, I read your body language, or I influenced you to do that." I say that. They can figure out how to do it, how I did it. They can watch back videos and how I do it. But I'm honest with them. I'm an honest psychic.
Well, exactly. That's why the book's called that, because mentalists are just honest psychics. That's the definition, as simple as I can put it. But even then, going one step further, mentalists are sometimes being fake in that, right? I mean, not to expose any of your tricks. I don't know which tricks you perform in your repertoire, but I know the tricks I do, and I'm going to be honest about those. That sometimes I claim that it's body language, that it's reading this, that it's reading that. Oh, I'm reading facial expressions. It's not. I used a marked deck and I knew what the card was right from the start, you know? So
yeah, I hold my hands up. Yeah, it was just a peek.
yeah, exactly. So the whole sort of, let me hold your hand and feel your heartbeat and I can tell when you're lying. Yeah, rubbish. Utter rubbish. You can't do that. I can't do that anyway. So some of it's real, some of it, yeah, genuinely you're influencing them to decide something. The stuff in the Honest Psychic, you are genuinely cold reading them using body language, whatever. But maybe you went on Google, you did a little research and you found out their Instagram and you know where they went on holiday last. And so you're using that and you can pretend that that's you judging body language or whatever. But there's so many there's so many layers of fakeness in magic. Even stuff that we say, oh, this is how I did it, that can be a lie. And even the stuff we give away as real secrets, even that can be a lie. You know, the whole thing is deception.
It's so, a double whammy.
Exactly, double, triple, however many whammies. How many whammies do you want? There's so many of them. It's so real in that sense. Is magic real in the performance art sense? That no, it's not. I mean, that's the answer to that side of it. And are psychics real? Some of them, no, definitely, but some of them might be. We don't know.
I'm just trying to look down at my notes and my question. I'm pretty sure we've answered most of them. I think the only one that's kind of missing is, we've touched on the whole ghosts thing. But like, do you just a quick question? Do you believe in the afterlife? Do you believe in that kind of thing?
Again, it's so close to religion. I'm agnostic, but I used to be very atheist. I used to be extremely atheist until, if you sort of want to go down this road, the reason I'm not atheist anymore is if there's no proof either way. And that's the way that I see it. I used to be, there's no proof, therefore there's no God. But actually, there's no proof, so there's no proof that there's no God. That's the way that I've sort of thought of it now. And I believe that I'm much more balanced in that, but that's just up to me to say. It's entirely a personal opinion. So in terms of afterlife, I'm kind of agnostic on that as well. And I suppose I'm agnostic on psychics. I kind of think there's no way that we can know. There might be people are psychic and there might be an afterlife, but until we can prove that, I suppose I have to keep myself agnostic to all of those things because I'm not sure. That's I know it's a terrible answer.
Series is the whole point of this series.
I know, and you want an answer, and I'm kind of not giving you one, so I'm so sorry.
No, but it's good because I want to talk to people who fully believe. I want to talk to people who are like me, somewhere in the middle. I like to call it limbo. And then I want to talk to people who just no, it's not true at all. Like complete skeptics, 100% skeptic, everything's fake. The kind of people that we go and do tricks to that you start sweating about.
Yeah. Oh goodness me. Yeah, and it's often magicians. Let's be honest. Magicians are so used to there being an explanation for everything and there being a secret and literally step-by-step instructions.
We've done in this video. We've
exactly
things and answered it.
Yeah, and we want an answer to everything. We want there to be a simple turn to page, whatever, and that's the answer, But if only life was that simple, it'd be brilliant.
Yeah.
But it's not, alas.
So yeah, the only other question really is when it comes to witches and spells, and do you think they ever existed, or do you? For me, I think it's like a story, like kind of like Jesus, like we said before. It's kind of like I kind of believe that a witch was someone who was like mixing herbs because their husband was ill. Somehow they got better by mixing these herbs, and stories lead to another story. Thousands of years later, this person was magic. That's how I do things. But I was just curious. And do you think witches ever existed? Do you think spells, curses, hexes, healings, herbs that's people still use nowadays, like crystals and things?
I have a very close friend who loves that sort of thing, like spirituality. And
you did a video. didn't
I
you?
did, yeah. And the whole sort of tarot card reading. I mean, there's so many topics within just that topic of spiritualism, of herbs and crystals and all that sort of stuff. I don't know enough about it, really, truly, to give an honest opinion, which is why I made that video, because I didn't know really what it was, and I still don't really fully understand what it is. But I know, because of their experience, that it's real for them. Again, we're defining real. Well, coming back to all of those points, magic, psychics, afterlife, ghosts, whatever it is, if a person thinks it's real, then it's real. That's just as valid. Like I was saying, it's their experience of reality, whatever it might be, that makes it real. I think that makes magic real, if you think it is.
Mm-hmm. Which this brings me on to the final question.
Oh, go on.
This is the question that I'm going to be asking everyone I meet in this series.
I hope I have a good answer.
It's a yes or no answer. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
Okay. The yes or no answer, that you don't. The whole point of it is you don't go into details. You don't go into a tangent on this question. Yes or no.
I'm bad at that. I'm bad at. Okay.
Question is magic real?
Yes.
Boom. Thank you very much.
Now the whole interview is going to be cut. The video is just 10 seconds long. It's just that. All of my reasons, all my arguments. No, like I said, I think it is. Whether real is an emotion, whether it's a physical thing, whatever it is. Yeah, I think magic.
Yeah, I'm very, at the moment, I'm very much on the same page at the moment.
I think is I couldn't honestly sit there and say no to that question, because of all the things I've been saying. Yes, there are things that I've explained and cast away as fake and rubbish and whatever, but there's so much more that outweighs all that stuff. And to sit there and go magic is not real, I don't think I feel particularly good about that. So yeah, this has been such an interesting conversation. I've loved that. It's such a interesting,
right? And we spoke before we started recording, but you go off into tangents. I don't know how long we've been filming for, but I've only asked probably 3 or 4 questions, but you've answered all my 10 questions just on that, and we've gone on so many different tangents, which I love. It's great.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoed it. Thank you so much for having me.
And I know we're coming to the end of it now. I can feel it, but it's I feel like we could carry on talking about this for another few hours. Do you see what I mean? It's a never-ending conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you've been there. I've had evenings with friends talking about this exact thing, and like I said, there's so much to it. We've scratched the surface on some of those topics. You could speak for an hour on each one of psychics or spirituality or whatever it is. But I think we've scratched the surface quite deeply, if that's a phrase. So yeah.
Yeah, so the only thing to really say, Kevin, is thank you so much for being part of this series and joining me on this journey. It's been a long time coming. I've been a massive follower of you, and I meant every word that I said at the very beginning.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
You do. When I, again, we've said before how I got into magic. When I stopped getting into magic, and when I first joined back into magic, it was your videos that. Got me back into it. It was around that time when it was, and I strongly believe this, as sentimental and as cheesy as it is, I don't think without you I'd be where I am today.
Wow.
Like in the most cheesiest way possible. I think it's true. So.
Thank you. I don't know how to take that, but that really does mean a lot. Yeah, thank you very much.
It's all true. It's 100% true. So the fact that it's gone full circle and you've helped me out in a video now is
oh yeah, no worries. Yeah, I mean, to the people watching, if you're not subscribed to Chasing the Illusion, what are you doing? I mean, I can't believe your channel is as underrated as it is. It's actually criminal. I'm gonna do what I can to push this video out there.
Because you do. It's a two-way thing. I've pushed your channel countless times on my channel. Everything that you do, I'm fully on board with it because I believe in everything that you do. and I know you reciprocate, and that's what I mean. You're at the very beginning, you're a very giving person, and probably the most giving person in Magic for me, anyway. Because thank you so much, Kevin. It really does mean so much that you've decided to come on to this series, and hopefully I can answer all your questions by the end of it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we'll do this again sometime. It was fun.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, thank you very much, Kevin. See you all in the next Is Magic Real episode. See you later.